I'll just start things off with a little bit of background of Similarweb and myself, for those who are unaware of who Similarweb are. Similarweb is the world's leading digital intelligence solution, and we allow our clients to deeply understand their market and use our data to act both tactically and strategically. We turn billions of data signals across websites, apps, search, marketplaces, various other sources into actionable insights. We help both brands and retailers, marketers, and analysts answer some of the toughest questions in e-commerce today, such as where's demand shifting, which competitors are gaining ground, and what's driving performance and what's not, and more. A quick intro to myself. I'm Daniel. I work within the market insights team based out of the London office. My role focuses on tracking trends across industries and subsectors, excuse me, and uncovering the stories and actionable insights that can help spot opportunities and respond to new and emerging shifts. I have a background in consumer research, media, and more recently fashion retail, having worked at ASOS prior to joining Similarweb. And today I'll be taking you through some of the key trends we've seen in the global and US fashion markets. So firstly, I'll be walking you through a high-level overview of what the global e-commerce fashion industry is experiencing. Then we'll be going on a deeper journey into the US market specifically. Third, we will see how Amazon competes in the fashion industry and the dynamics that we're seeing play out there specifically. And lastly, just rounding up what we've gone through into learnings and opportunities for Q4 and beyond. If anyone has any questions, feel free to use the Q&A function in Zoom, and I'll get to them at the end. So let's dig right in with the global overview. So to start with, it's clear that the fashion industry, at least in the e-commerce world, is experiencing difficulties. The pandemic gave a boom to all e-commerce industries. Fashion was included within that, but they have struggled to sustain that momentum, and we're now seeing clear signs of a split in consumer behavior. What we're looking at here is the trend of both web traffic and app traffic for the industry at a worldwide level. What I would say is ignore the absolute traffic numbers here for a moment. What is important is those growth figures. App sessions as an absolute number will inherently be higher than web visits due to the behavior differences between app and web usage and how they're calculated. And while I don't have the equivalent app metric to unique visitors on this screen, I can confirm that this is a lower number, so don't be concerned that web is a much smaller portion of traffic. Web is still the overwhelming majority, but app is where we're seeing growth. So we are seeing that clear divergence between the two. On the website, traffic is slipping, visits are down 3.4% year over year, and unique visitors are down similar percentage. It appears that many casual or price sensitive shoppers are either pulling back on discretionary fashion spend or shifting towards some multi-category retailers. In contrast, you can see that those app sessions are up 12.5%, which tells us that the most engaged fashion shoppers are sticking around and deepening their relationship with the brands through apps. The question here then becomes why? Well, apps are where brands are investing in personalization, loyalty programs, and convenience, which is clearly resonating with their core customers. And another dynamic here is spending consolidation. Instead of spreading their dollars across many stores, shoppers are concentrating on just a few trusted retailers that they like to shop with. It's becoming clear that apps are the critical battleground for loyalty and wallet share, especially in a more challenging economic environment that we're seeing more recently. When we break the global trend down by top countries, the picture becomes clearer. So as we saw, worldwide traffic is down 3.4% year over year, and the US is actually underperforming that benchmark with visits down 5.7%. Germany, Spain, and Poland are all seeing sharper than average declines. Poland, the weakest of that bunch, at 8.2%. Western Europe remains relatively soft, however. France is down just 0.8% and the UK is down 1.2%. However, declines in prior years to the last 12 months were much steeper, so it's worth considering that the sharper drops we see now in those other markets may simply be following the earlier patterns already experienced in markets like France and the UK. The bright spots here are in some of the more emerging growth markets. So India stands out at 10% or in excess of 10%, with fashion e-commerce expanding rapidly as more consumers come online, younger generations become those with purchasing power and the influence of social and like many other cultures start to bleed into some of those other markets as well. South Korea is also pretty solid at 6.8% growth, likely tied to continued influence of K-pop, K-fashion trends, and strong domestic platforms that they have in their market. And Brazil adds another growth pocket at 2.5%, helped by a younger mobile-first consumer base. So the story globally is mixed. Most developed markets are in decline, but growth opportunities look to be concentrated in Asia and Latin America. For global brands, this really underlines the need to balance strategy, defending loyalty in those slowing Western markets while aggressively pursuing growth in some of these more dynamic regions. And if we look at how fashion spend on Amazon is playing out across regions, we see some further trends. In the US, Amazon is one of the key leaders in fashion e-commerce and continues to show strong results. Even though overall fashion site traffic is down, Amazon still delivered growth in both revenue and units sold. That shows it's firmly entrenched as this destination retailer for American shoppers, at least when it comes to shopping for basics and essentials, as you can see by the bestsellers on the right here. And it's continuing to grow in the region. In Europe, the story is very different. The UK, France, and Germany all saw double-digit revenue declines with flat or negative unit growth, suggesting a consumer preference for fashion specialists, even as we see some of those things decline, or offline retail channels. Italy is a bit of an outlier here. Units sold ticked up slightly, but revenue fell, pointing to either heavier discounting or a shift towards lower price items than was previously purchased. And taking both of these together, it creates quite a sharp contrast. North America is still a growth engine for Amazon in fashion, while Europe is struggling to translate the scale that Amazon has into fashion share for Amazon. Again, key takeaways for those in North America is lean into that Amazon strategy with investment in visibility and assortment. And in markets where Amazon performance looks weaker, perhaps give greater focus to fashion specialists and your own owned channels. If we just take a look at consumer mindset, we can see kind of why some of these dynamics are playing out. So we see that economic anxiety is shaping behavior across retail as a whole, but also fashion specifically. We recently asked 1,000 US consumers who had planned to participate in Prime Day various questions around their intentions and current situations. Half of them told us that they had planned to spend less this Prime Day in July just gone due to financial concerns. But at the same time, many utilized the event to stock up on essentials and stretch their budgets a bit further. That tension point between caution and opportunity is shaping how consumers are approaching retail spend. Where consumers feel they may be able to hold back some spend on non-essential, they will do so. And this can be, well, this is a problem for the fashion industry in particular, as opposed to some of the other industries within retail. So, what about the US more specifically? Well, we've already seen that fashion traffic is down, while Amazon unit sales and revenue are both up in the US. And across the industry, we're seeing a clear behavioral shift. Both visit duration and visits per user are trending down, telling us that consumers are spending less time browsing overall. And when we dig deeper into this behavior, looking at product views versus unit sales, the same pattern comes through. People are landing on the products that they want faster, and conversion is increasing as a result. So, in other words, fewer clicks are leading to more purchases. This signals a more intentional mindset among these shoppers. They're not browsing aimlessly in the way that we saw a few years ago. Instead, they're coming to platforms like Amazon with a clear idea of what it is that they want. Part of this is likely due to better prepared consumers who have done their research before visiting, comparing styles, prices, or reviews elsewhere. But equally, it's about the platform experience itself. Amazon, in particular, is getting better at surfacing the right products quickly through recommendation engines, personalized suggestions, and a seamless shopping journey that encourages quicker decision making. So the big picture here is that fashion shopping, at least in the US, is becoming faster, more focused, and more purposeful. And this means the challenge is no longer just about attracting traffic for retailers. It's about ensuring that when consumers arrive, the path to purchase is as short and as effective as possible. When we look at the split between gender sales within fashion, we can see that women remain the dominant purchasing category overall, accounting for the bulk of spend throughout the year. But when we look at seasonal peaks for each of the categories, we see some clear differences between the two. For women, we see two distinct surges. The first is in the summer months when new seasonal wardrobes and lifestyle shifts drive higher purchasing. The second is at the end of the year where holiday shopping and sales events add another uplift. For men, the picture does look different. The end of year peak is far more pronounced and significantly higher than mid-year levels. And this spike appears to be driven less by style experimentation and more by value and gifting behavior, men taking advantage of major discount periods or receiving apparel as gifts. So what this tells us is that female shoppers sustain fashion spending throughout the year with multiple peaks, while male spending is disproportionately weighted to year end. So tailoring promotions, product mix, and messaging to these seasonal and gendered behaviors can make a real difference in helping to capture share. So while we've seen that web traffic is declining and app activity is growing, when we look at the trends for top players within the US, the picture is a bit more nuanced. So for most of the top retailers, both web and app users are falling, but for a handful, Shein, Gap, Nordstrom, Lululemon, they're bucking the trend, managing to grow their app audiences. So what's driving that? Well, each one offers clear, tangible benefits through their apps. Shein leans into exclusive discount codes. Lululemon and Nordstrom provide early access to product drops, and Gap builds loyalty through cardholder perks and program access. Of course, these kind of perks aren't unique to these players. Many other retailers use similar tactics. The difference is just that for these winners, customers perceive real value. It feels genuinely worth their time to shop through the app. And the app route is very important for retailers for kind of many reasons, but for four key ones. Apps give richer first party data beyond what you can capture on the web, the ability to own more of the customer experience without being diluted by competitors, the chance to serve more personalized content and recommendations, and in some cases, even track shopper behavior across platforms, helping you understand intent better than ever. And that's why we're calling apps the new battleground for loyalty. In this climate of economic uncertainty, loyalty is fragile and acquisition is expensive. If you can't give customers a compelling reason to stay in your ecosystem, you risk losing them to a competitor. And once they're gone, one good experience elsewhere may mean that you never get them back. When we look at the performance of top brands, comparing product view growth across all retailers with visit growth to their own direct-to-consumer sites, we start to see some interesting dynamics that speak to the cyclical nature of fashion trends. So during and immediately after the pandemic, sportswear brands surged, consumers started prioritizing comfort and versatility over more traditional clothing choices. But over the last 12 months, the pendulum starts to swing back. Shoppers are re-engaging with classical fashion that embodies more timeless aesthetics. So two brands really stand out here, Levi's and Ralph Lauren. Both are synonymous with classic American style, Levi's with denim and rugged wear, Ralph Lauren with a more preppy sophistication. And both are showing positive momentum, growth in both product views across retail partners and traffic gains to their direct-to-consumer sites. In other words, Americans are increasingly looking to the old for their new, rediscovering these heritage brands as trusted anchors in a period of shifting fashion tastes. So, what is clear is that heritage and authenticity do matter. In times of uncertainty, consumers often gravitate back to what feels tried and tested, whether that's denim staples or polished classics. The fact that growth is showing up in both multi-retail environments and direct owned channels show that these brands are succeeding on both fronts in both broad reach and their owned engagement. And while this doesn't necessarily spell the end of sportswear, it does highlight how category momentum is cyclical. Just as athleisure rose sharply post 2020, we're now seeing a rebalancing towards more traditional wardrobes. Key takeaway here is that brands with a strong heritage story and the ability to stay relevant in modern contexts can thrive, even as overall market dynamics shift. For newer or trend-led players, the challenge will be how to sustain visibility when the pendulum inevitably swings again. And don't just take my word for it. Retailers themselves are responding to the resurgence of denim, and in doing so, they're generating some major cultural moments. American Eagle tapped Sydney Sweeney for their Great Jeans campaign, which went viral online, creating a huge amount of buzz across social media in July, and it led to a 9% increase in visits year on year. Gap was very quick to respond with its own denim focus campaign, utilizing influential global girl group Cat's Eye and leaning into nostalgia by pairing classic Y2K styles with the iconic Milkshake song by Kellis. These aren't just one-off stunts, they do show how seriously retailers are betting on the denim revival. Significant investment is going into making denim front and center again because brands see this as a genuine opportunity to capture consumer demand in an uncertain period. Another big influence shaping the US fashion landscape is the continued rise of the circular economy. So platforms like Poshmark, ThredUp, The Real Real, and Depop give consumers the chance to buy secondhand clothing, often at a discount. That's a key difference from marketplaces like StockX, where items are frequently sold at a premium. And this model does appeal to two of the strongest consumer drivers today, value for money and sustainability. And for younger shoppers, those factors are amplified by the broader vintage fashion craze, which is particular cultural appeal among Gen Z. So in the US, Poshmark remains the largest player, with around 20 million web visitors and 7 million app users as of June 2025. But the challenger to watch is Depop. Its footprint is smaller. It's only got about 6 million web visitors and 5 million app users, but its momentum is far stronger. I would just highlight again that the difference between their web visits of the two, 20 million for Poshmark and 6 million for Depop, is far wider than the difference between their app users at 7 million for Poshmark and 5 million for Depop. So just bear that in mind with that growth of app that I mentioned. Over the past 12 months, Depop has grown nearly 40% on the web and 70% in app, while Poshmark has seen declines across both. That growth is being powered by Depop's youthful user base. Nearly half of their app users are aged 18 to 24, compared with only about 20% for Poshmark. And in fact, more than 80% of Depop's app audience is under 35, while over half of Poshmark's users are over 35. It just shows how brand position and audience alignment shape success in the resale space. Depop's marketing, branding, cultural relevance are winning over the younger consumers, and in doing so, it's reshaping how the next generation thinks about shopping for fashion. And again, this is something that major retailers of new clothing are paying close attention to, and many are taking action to protect themselves against this shift towards secondhand. Uniqlo is a good example. They've been working to keep younger shoppers engaged, not only through new products, but also through initiatives that align with this circular economy. These include offering repair services to extend the life of garments, providing programs to donate clothing to those in need, and recycling used pieces into new materials and new products. This isn't just about sustainability as a brand value, it's about meeting younger consumers where their priorities are. For Gen Z and millennials, to an extent, the ability to repair, recycle, and reuse feels as important as buying something new. What we're seeing then is that these circular practices are no longer confined to those resale platforms. They're being absorbed into the strategy of mainstream retailers. For those brands, it's both a way to stay relevant with younger value-driven audiences and a way to protect wallet share that might otherwise leak to resale. The bigger picture is that circularity is becoming a defining part of the fashion ecosystem, whether that's secondhand marketplaces or major retailers building repair and recycling directly into their value propositions. So let's take a look at what's playing out within Amazon and why they might be seeing those increased fashion sales that we looked at earlier. Well, fashion is always seasonal, but year over year trends help us see where consumer tastes are shifting in ways that will likely continue. If we look at women's clothing subcategories, a couple of clear themes emerge from July's Prime Day that are important as we head into October's event in a couple of weeks and beyond. The first is a focus on value. Growth in unit sales is outpacing revenue, showing that shoppers are leaning toward lower price point items than they have done in the past. This is particularly evident in basics categories like tops and sweaters, where volume is rising but at lower spend levels. Increasingly, swimwear is a bit of an exception here, delivering strong unit growth without a sharper decline in revenue, or without a sharper gap, sorry. The second trend is a shift away from formal wear. Dresses are seeing declines, suggesting consumers are using Amazon and Prime Day to stock up on practical functional clothing such as activewear, swimwear, everyday basics, rather than more fashion forward or occasion driven pieces. And together, these patterns point to a consumer mindset that's shaped by value sensitivity and lifestyle needs, which will continue to shape fashion performance through the end of the year and beyond. Male fashion shows similar overarching dynamics to women's, with declining price points driving stronger unit growth than revenue, though the trend is less pronounced. Unlike in women's categories, we don't see the same sharp shifts in category preferences aside from underwear, which has experienced declines. What does stand out is the correlation with function. The fastest growing categories for men on Amazon are sleep and loungewear, swimwear, activewear, and they're all rooted in practicality and everyday use. Pants are something of an outlier here, showing growth on par with these functional categories. Overall, male fashion purchasing on Amazon reinforces the idea that a portion of men often shop with function over style in mind. Amazon's strengths align well here, offering value on essentials and practical clothing, rather than necessarily positioning themselves as a destination for trend-led or fashion-forward apparel. And while overall fashion traffic is declining and specialist retailers are feeling the pressure, activity on Amazon and other generalist marketplaces is growing. On Amazon in particular, we saw that growth is driven by lower price points, reflecting that sharper consumer focus on value than in recent years. But why is Amazon benefiting so strongly from these shifts? Well, if we look at the top brands by volume on Prime Day in 2025, it kind of gives us the answer. Hanes continues to lead as the go-to basics and essentials brand, but Amazon Essentials is quickly catching up with impressive growth. The most interesting story, though, comes from the next wave of brands. So among the top 10 by volume, the fastest growth belongs to Anrobes, CRZ Yoga, and Automet, all of which have built momentum through viral attention and their reputation for dupe products that mimic popular fashion brands at far lower price points. So this combination of trusted essentials and value-driven dupes highlights exactly why Amazon is so well positioned to capture fashion spend in the current climate. Anrobes has captured attention with its lounge set that mirrors Spanx Air Essentials line. The original retails for around $218, while the dupe sells for as low as $34, and has earned glowing reviews from shoppers for both quality and fit. CRZ Yoga has become synonymous with Lululemon dupes. The activewear has generated consistent buzz, with reviewers heavily favoring the cost-effective alternatives, noting that their products deliver still similar comfort and design to Lululemon's, but for significantly less money. And AutoMet, although less documented in mainstream press than the others, again does the same, offering Amazon shoppers compelling alternatives to trending styles with strong viral attention, reinforcing this theme of high demand looks at accessible prices. These brands embody what modern consumers, especially those aligning with Amazon, are looking for: stylish, functional pieces that mimic premium looks without the premium price. Amazon's ability to amplify and capitalize on dupe culture is a key driver behind its fashion traffic growth when traditional fashion channels are flagging. So, with all of that in mind, what can we expect to see in Q4 and beyond? Well, firstly, value will continue to dominate. The same economic caution we've seen across 2025 so far is unlikely to ease very quickly. Shoppers will go into holiday season with a clear preference for affordability and drive deal-driven discovery. That means brands and retailers positioned at lower price points or able to leverage promotions effectively are best placed to capture spend. We may see continued growth in certain subcategories such as activewear, loungewear, but we can expect that volume to outpace revenue growth still. Higher priced items could remain subdued until consumer confidence improves. Secondly, we could see Amazon's grip growing even tighter. Essentials and basics have already been a huge growth driver, but the viral dupe trend shows little signs of slowing down and may well continue to accelerate with continued economic instability. We should expect Amazon's role as a launchpad for viral, value-orientated brands to remain a disruptive force through Q4 holiday events like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Those focusing on apps will see gains as a result, with casual browsers dropping off but loyalists doubling down on apps. Q4 and beyond will likely see app-centric retailers reaping the rewards of loyalty perks and personalized engagement, particularly during gifting season. And those who benefit from this behavior will be able to better tweak and improve their experiences with the added data at their disposal. Circular fashion will continue to become more mainstream, with Depop, Poshmark, and even Uniqlo's rewear and repair initiatives gaining traction. The sustainability narrative is set to influence more gifting choices this holiday, especially among younger demographics. And finally, regional divergence will alter global strategy and windows for success. So while the US remains the anchor, it's worth watching Asia and Latin America closely, where fashion traffic is growing, and these could be bright spots in what might otherwise be a muted global outlook.